All right, I will call to order the meeting of the Kent County Board of Commissioners and start with the roll call. Lisa, would you please do that for us?
My pleasure, Mr. Chair. Commissioners Skaggs.
Here.
Wooden.
Here.
Womack.
Here.
Bulkowski.
Present.
LeGrand.
Here.
Hennessy.
Here.
McLeod.
Here.
Sparks. Teal.
Here.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Here.
Commissioners Coleman. Burl. Ponstein.
Here.
Bolter.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Antor. Green.
Here.
Chairstuck.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 members present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I will now call in Commissioner Burrow for the invocation.
All right, so for this morning's invocation, I'm going to read words of hope. And it was really kind of funny. This was actually for Thursday, January 27th, and it was like the first page I turned to. And it was about getting along. And I thought, hey, this is it might be a little fitting here sometimes. So this is from John Oppennorth, who wrote this. And it kind of goes into a little story if you ever read the Words of Hope. An older friend reflected on his life with me over lunch. He observed that the closer he came to death, the more accepting he was of people with whom he disagreed. He had found the sweet spot in his soul where he could hold firm to his convictions and still get along with people who thought differently. In the silence between sentences, there was an implied wonder at how relationships might have been different had he found the sweet spot sooner. He says this is Paul's invitation in Romans 14. As the first Christians navigated life, they differed over things like the kinds of food to eat, the day to worship on, and drinking alcohol. Every generation faces its own dilemmas. Can Christians serve in the military? Can we eat out on Sunday? When is divorce and remarriage permitted? I'm sure you could add to the list. When it comes to matters that do not deal with bedrock belief about the resurrection and the lordship of Jesus, Paul wants us to live with the end in mind. For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. Therefore, he commands us to welcome and not to quarrel over opinions. Instead, we are to pursue what makes for peace and for mutual upbuilding. Take time today to reflect with whom the Holy Spirit nudge you and welcome and not quarrel with. How might life be different if you lived with the end in mind? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now move to public comment. If there is anyone from the public that wishes to address the Board of Commissioners on matters that are on the agenda, you may do so. Please identify yourself, and you have up to 3 minutes. It appears that we have no public comment, so I will move to the next item, which is item number 6, the consent agenda, and call on Commissioner Burrow.
Sorry, I'm just kind of situated here. I'd like to move the consent agenda forward, please.
All right, motion has been made to approve the consent agenda, supported by Commissioner Morgan. Will you please take any discussion?
That's messing with my chair.
If not, will you please take the roll call?
On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Skaggs.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Hennessy. McLeod.
Yes.
Sparks. Teal.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman. Burl.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Bolter. Jones.
Yes.
She's here, she's not all there.
That is out of order.
Commissioners Morgan. Antor. Green.
Yes.
Chairstick.
Yes?
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted with my apologies to Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you for that. We will move to our resolutions and item number 7, starting with 7A, and I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 2/24/22/24, which is today's date, or of today's date. The National Association of County and City Health Officials, known as NACO's, Evaluating Health in All Policies in Lead Program from the Health Department.
Motion is made. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Wooden. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Womack.
Just a small question about the indirect costs, just to hear a little more about what they are.
All right, some of the indirect costs. Good morning.
Indirect costs are the administrative costs of the health department that we charge back to all programs that we have, all grant programs, any programs, they get charged back. It would be things like just administration, medical director, health officer, like myself, finance, IT, facilities, all of those things are all included in our administration costs, and all those are charged back to every grant program that we do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner LeGrand.
This sounds great, but I'm wondering, could you just give us a quick description of what it's going to look like in the day-to-day, this kind of work?
What this is some money for us to do an assessment in the various, we're using our community connectors to go out into all the various population groups. And we're using those connectors to help us develop the assessment. We're then going out to do the assessment. We'll gather that information so we can create a baseline of where's there maybe lack of knowledge of the risks of lead hazards. Where are there people maybe that don't know how to access the services for lead? Those kinds of things. So we'll create a baseline, and then that will also identify the gaps where we want to target to be able to do our outreach.
All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So quick question to follow up on Commissioner LeGrand's. I thought that there is work being done to mitigate lead, and so that when's the last time that there was an assessment, or was there not one?
Boy, Adam, do you know, I'm not aware of a full-blown assessment of all of those groups done in the last, at least probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. In those various homes, that population turns over quite often, so we want to continue to create that baseline so that we can continue to target those areas where we need to.
And I'm not aware that there's ever been a big, and as you all know quite well, the disparate numbers that we see in elevated lead levels. Understanding of what.
Can you get just a little closer to the microphone? I heard you well, but I'm sure the broadcast did not work, but, so.
Would you like me to restate that, or?
I don't think that's necessary. So. Commissioner Bulkowski, and then.
Yeah, just want to reiterate some of the, or to emphasize, at Finance, we had a lot of conversation related to this, and a commissioner who will go nameless kept asking for special orders of business. And I believe, again, the lead issue is ripe for that, as Commissioner McLeod asked. It's great for us to kind of level set what we've been doing over the last decade and what we need to do hopefully over the next couple of years just to get done with lead, since the pandemic has kind of taken all the oxygen out of the room, but lead is still a very serious issue in our community. So I can't remember which commissioner that was.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I think I watched it and know who that was. It's a little bit aside of the motion, but I will assure you that we've had those conversations, and we will be doing something with that.
Currently, we have a team that's working hard on it now. We also have the lead action team that's been brought together that's beginning their work or expanding their work, and we'd be happy to share that.
All right, Commissioner Womack.
Two questions. And I totally understand this administrative cost. That's not a lot at all for administrative costs. When you get grants where a lot of time the grants say only 10% can be used for administration fees, are you able to still service those grants?
Yeah, when we do have quite a few, some of the federal grants that we get to have a max of 10%. And so we will supplement that with some general fund component to it. Depends on the program, so we weigh that, whether or not that's, a program that fits the priorities that we're looking at, whether and how much additional cost that would be. But yeah, we do supplement those so that we can continue to do that work.
Okay, and my final question, I'm on Mayor Rosalind Bliss led task force. So will there be any conversations with cities and municipalities that have taken some assessments and some different data on lead within their jurisdictions? And, us being the county, are we already working with that information that's there, and how would it relate to?
Yes,
The work.
absolutely. It's a great question, and we have, and especially the city of Grand Rapids, we work very closely with them because they've been in the space for a long time as well. And our two programs we have now, where we're doing many of the assessments and they're doing a lot of the funding of remediation work, really work hand in hand and very well. But certainly we are all together working on data sharing and on sharing whatever resources we can to make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. London.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. London, I recall from our board retreat in early 2020, prior to COVID, there was a discussion about expanding blood testing in all infants and newborns across the healthcare sector in Kent County. I'm assuming, obviously, the present pandemic has delayed those efforts, but has progress been made, or is progress being renewed to expand blood testing across the county throughout the entire healthcare system?
I think the awareness of the issue has expanded, and we've done an awful lot of education with providers' offices. And I think that, and I know that has broadened somewhat, where the assumptions that were being made based on the location of the provider relative to whether or not they recommend a blood test have changed, and people now understand very clearly that people anywhere in the county could be exposed to lead. I think your point about the pandemic and how that has caused many appointments to be delayed, has, a lot of preventative care and child checkups have been rescheduled, postponed, canceled, is very concerning to us, and it's something that we continue to work with providers on to make sure that they do make those recommendations for blood testing as they see those kids in that age group.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? I see none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 24, Commissioners Skaggs,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
McLeod, Sparks,
Yes.
Teal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman, Burl,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Bolter, Jones,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Antor, Green,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 24 is adopted.
Thank you. We will move to item 7B, and I will call on Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move Resolution 25 of today's date. Request to accept federal grant to form an enhanced collaborative model, the task force to combat human trafficking from the Sheriff's Department.
Support.
Motion is made. It is supported by Commissioner Womack. Any comments or questions? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. So we hear about this on the news, and whenever we hear the word human trafficking, we always think about the sex part of it. but human trafficking is nothing more than modern-day slavery. And not only does it occur in this country, it occurs all across the world. So I guess my question, I'm not on the Finance Committee, and a lot of things go through there, and not the legislative. So can you maybe explain or take time on how we're going to address the labor part of it? Because I think that, not to say that the sex part of it isn't important, it is, but it's vastly more traffic of labor than it is of the sex crimes.
Good morning. So this is a collaborative grant that's got two halves to it. There's the human services half. There's a separate grant for that through the Salvation Army. And then there's the sheriff's office half of it. And there's also a coordinated piece in between. So it takes the approach of the human being, and the human being that needs service, the human being that needs assistance to get re-supported. So that could be if they've been a victim of labor, human trafficking, or any other kind of human trafficking, to include sex crimes, and there's a number of them out there. I know we do often think of the sex crimes, but I'll give you the example that kind of caught my attention when I first had an in-depth conversation. I participate on some committees through the FBI, CGIS, which is their information systems. And the example they used at that meeting that got my attention are some of the shoplifting rings that we see going from community to community, smash and grabs and such. And many of those individuals have been enticed into that life, and then they get caught up in that life and can't get out. And wherever that happens to shake out, whatever that community is, they're often displaced from where it is they come from and have no way to get back to where they came from, no way to support themselves. And so wherever they come from and how they get to us, this approach starts there and then kind of unwinds what happened, what do we need to do from here in terms of a criminal approach, or perhaps, if we need to coordinate with federal resources, if it's labor, or do we just need to get them a hand to get re-established, or perhaps even back to where they need to go to be with family and friends. So, does that answer your question?
Well, yes, yes, it does. It's such a broad topic, and the whole thing is that we're gonna round them up and send them back. It's where they were from that got them to where they are today.
And I think what's really important about this change is it's not a round them up change. We're not, this isn't a task force to shake out human trafficking in Kent County. This is a task force to set up a mechanism to gather information that may lead us to finding human trafficking. So one of the tasks is to train patrol officers to ask questions more in line with, are you potentially a victim of human trafficking, as opposed to, I have, probable cause to believe you just committed a shoplift and you're under arrest. You're gonna be under arrest perhaps, but you may be a victim of something. We need to get you other services to get you out of that cycle. So this grant really causes a change in the approach of the way we look at every crime that is already happening, that we already know about, and see if there's a human services component that we need to shore up. So it's not a round them up. We're not going to be doing a lot of stings. We may perhaps do some stings as part of the information that we gather, but the approach is a very human services approach first, so that we can get victims to understand that we're here to help, and then do something to help them.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I love the sound of this approach. It sounds really forward-thinking. I'm curious how we will interact with perhaps immigration authorities if the people that we find are not citizens, if they might be undocumented. Then what is the next step, and what are we participating in there? What will the sheriff's role be there?
So we do not have a role specifically to turn things over to immigration. So again, we would take the approach of looking at what's happening with the incident we see. We would collaborate with federal officials in the context that it's under their jurisdiction to investigate what's ever happening. And obviously illegal labor is one of the things that would be turned over to federal officials to investigate. That's not under the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office. Those are generally federal laws. We would focus on the laws that are under the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office. But the whole center of this grant is to combine resources into a task force so that it can be seamless from one section to another. Our focus is generally going to be those offenses that we already investigate. Crimes against children, crimes against adults in a sexual crime against an adult. We'd investigate, obviously, like I said, a lot of the property crimes appear to be related to some kind of forced labor. So we would focus on those things that we're already investigating, but we'll line people up with resources to get reestablished and to improve their situation so that they don't continue to reoccur and they get the help they need.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I do have one follow-up. I think you indicated, Sheriff, that there is a related grant to Salvation Army.
Yes.
In a similar amount, I believe.
Yep.
How will your office integrate with what goes on at the Salvation Army?
So I'm going to introduce Lieutenant Jason Richards for a second. Come on up here, Jason. So Jason is going to be the coordinator. So there are two $750,000 grants. And then we both are paying to an entity called C, and C is going to coordinate those grants between the two entities. We both have a $250,000 obligation in what we call in-kind resources. Those are things that we're already doing as the Sheriff's Department that we have to count and show that we're continuing to do so that this doesn't supplant work we've already been doing. But we have that, they have that on their side, and then there's a structure that's put together to help coordinate it with C. So Lieutenant Richards is going to be responsible from the sheriff's end. As you get updates, it likely will be from Lieutenant Richards, and I would expect that we would probably have some information to follow up with you guys on in probably about 9 months. But again, this is an establishment of a program, so there's a lot of training for us to do. There's a lot of structure setting, policy writing, operation determination, really before we get into the meat of the investigation. So Jason's got a heavy load ahead of him, and he's very excited about doing it.
Well, good. Again, you mentioned C. Who and/or what is C?
So C is the Solution to End Exploitation. It's a nonprofit located here in Grand Rapids. Their role in our program is we're the law enforcement entity. Salvation Army would be the victim service structure, and then C kind of coordinates everything for us. They have criteria they need to meet for the grant. They have criteria that they have to meet for us. And so their goal is to, let's say that they bring other resources to the table as well, as far as ideas for safe houses, locations, things like that.
Good. Well, this is a significant issue to us, and we're really assuming this gets approved, as I suspect it will. We look forward to hearing more about this as we go forward. So, any other questions or comments? All right. If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 25, Commissioners Skaggs.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman. Burl.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Bolter.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Antor. Green.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 25 is adopted.
Thank you. I'll move to 7C and call on Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I move the adoption of resolution number 26 of today's date, 2021-22 Kent County DUI seatbelt and speed overtime traffic enforcement grant from the Sheriff's Office.
Support.
Thank you. It is supported by Commissioner Jones. Any comments or questions? All right. You don't have to come back up. Will you please take the roll call vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 26, Commissioners Skaggs,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
LeGrand, Hennessy, McLeod,
Yes.
Sparks, Teal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman, Burl,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Bolter, Jones,
Yes.
Morgan, Antor, Green,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 26 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 7D, and I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 27 of today's date, which is an amendment to the 2021 lodging excise tax budget.
Supported by Commissioner Morgan. Thank you. Any comments or questions? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 27, Commissioners Skaggs,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
LeGrand, Hennessy, McLeod,
Yes.
Sparks, Teal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman, Burl,
Yes.
Ponstein,
Yes.
Bolter, Jones,
Yes.
Morgan, Antor, Green,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 27 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to our next item, which is the second opportunity for public comment. If there is anyone from the public that wishes to address the Board of Commissioners on matters involving general county jurisdiction, you may do so. Identify yourself, please, and you have up to 3 minutes. And I see no one stepping forward, so we'll move to our next item, item number 9, which is the administrator's report. Al?
Yeah, I have a few items for you this morning. We are getting very close to a contract with Guidehouse, which will consult us during the ARPA process, so we're looking to get moving on that, identifying transformational investments and bringing those back to you for approval. Also, we are working, we had our initial meeting with Robertson Brain Health, and we're working first with the Health Department with that initiative. And I'll mention the Judicial Resources Subcommittee and the Veterans Millage Subcommittee have each completed their work, so those recommendations will be moving through the process soon. And I represent the county on DGRI and the Grand River Inc. Group, a brand-new group that's looking to identify and guide development along the river, primarily in Grand Rapids, although some of us are definitely advocating to make that more throughout the county and even 2 counties to link us to Lake Michigan more tightly. And we're very close to adopting the bylaws for that group. I've been on the governance committee for that. Also, I do represent the county on the Smart Zone LDFA board for Grand Rapids, and we recently renewed the contract with Spartan Innovations. And let's see, what else? I think that's it for today. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments to the administrator? Not? We'll move to items 10, reports. Any reports from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few reports. I was pretty busy this month. Let's start with the Parks Foundation. I know this is a piece that is important to communicate back. There is the possibility that the committees and then the board will see a potential additional acquisition. There are a number of steps that still have to go. This has been on the radar for a while. It's in Cannon Township. It's going to be a donation through the foundation that would then be owned by the county, and this is regarding the Silver Lake parcel. So there are still a number of steps that have to happen through Cannon Township first, but just wanted to make sure everybody here heard it. If you have questions about this, please get those to Al, and just wanted to make sure that when we sit down to do this, the fellow commissioners don't go, boy, it's the first I've heard of it, and now I'm seeing it. So you're hearing about it now. We've heard about it actually over the last year or so, but since this is potentially now getting some additional momentum, want to make sure it was very much on your radar for that piece. The parks also, I started a day of action. This has been going really well. We're going to do it again this year. So if there's any commissioner that has a county park near them, it gives us an opportunity to give something other than money. We can give our time to improve a project at the park. So if you have a park in the county that you would like to engage with, you would like to lead that, let me know and I'll coordinate you with the right folks. We're targeting end of April for that to happen. I will be leading a parks improvement project at Townsend Park, very similar to what I did in previous years at Wabas's. I like to make sure the picnic tables look nice. So we actually paint and stain picnic tables. And personally, I enjoy sitting down at a nice picnic table. All right, the other report that I have, we all had invitations to go to the campaign for the Grand Agricultural Center of West Michigan. I was there with Commissioner Hennessy. I know that our treasurer was there, Pete McGregor, and wanted to report, told them I would report back to all of you who weren't able to make it, quoting our clerk, Lisa Postumus-Lyons, because she's in the brochure. The Kent County Youth Fair has made such an impact in my life. I am the third generation to participate in the fair, she said, and now my kids are the fourth. I am excited as they embarked on their 4-H journey, knowing they will have the same unforgettable experiences as I did. So I want everyone to have a copy of this brochure, and they have a phenomenal plan for the acreage out there, and it's not just for the youth fair. It will be a youth fair base, but it's also going to bring other tourism, horse show events. They have a dog arena. They're looking at a community building. So this will be a significant addition to our community, and I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware of it. They have the getting all their ducks in a row, starting with in 2018, raising nearly $4 million. And they also have a plan here on the revenue impacts and projections that this will have for our county. Those are my reports.
Great, thank you. Thank you for attending that and bringing that back to us. Any other reports? Yes, Vice Chair Breedy.
Thank you, Chair Steck. So I have an update from the airport, and we are currently at about 87% of our passenger travel numbers of 2019, and that's a good number. It's not, 100, 110%, but it is a good number. We're looking upward. Another thing, too, what you'll notice is you might see a little bit of a flight reduction. I know Southwest is having a pilot shortage, and that's common. That's a common theme among a lot of the carriers. So if you know anyone who has some goals to fly, encourage them to become a pilot to help out our industry and to continue growing that. And so we have a great school right by the airport, the Aviation Academy. Highly recommend. So another thing too is there has been an ongoing PFAS issue in the area because of some of the foam that's needed to help prevent fires and practicing. It's an ongoing issue, but the airport received a grant and is working with the local township there to connect the homes nearby to city water. So that's a positive thing. And then Project Elevate, which is the expansion of Concourse A, is continuing to move forward. And even though we've had some wild winter weather, they've been able to pour footings and get the project really underway. So it's exciting to see that happen. And once we get all the snow to melt, and we can see even more of that. But it's moving forward, and it's going at the right speed at the moment. So there's my update.
It's good to know who's responsible for melting the snow. Thank you. Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick report from the Grand Rapids DDA and how they're spending our tax increment that they enjoy. There was an approval of some funding for a new condo and apartment tower that's actually going to go on top of the parking ramp at Studio Park, so you'll see that rising soon. And then there's some significant pedestrian safety improvements in downtown. The first of 7 that are planned was approved. And then some road movement or reconstruction to support the new Spectrum Center, which is no longer a conflict of interest for Commissioner Bolter. And then also then planning for better connection from the top of Belknap Hill down to the river. So there's, planning to make that better than if you've seen those scary steps. Yes, so there's planning for that occurring. So that's what's happening with our tax increment and others.
All right, thank you. Any other reports? If not, I do have a couple of items just following up on Al's comments. We did receive the formal report from the Judicial Resource Subcommittee, and thank you for that, to those that worked on that. I have had a chance to review it, and under our Standing Rule 6.2, do confirm that it does comply with the charge, and we will be submitting at least the recommendations for an additional probate judge to the 2 standing committees for consideration and follow-up. There is another recommendation in there relative to a district court judge, but we will be holding that pending further legislation, hopefully coming through the state. There is a draft of the report on the veterans millage. We'll have to go through that yet before I'll affirm that we are accepting it, but that'll probably come through in the next meeting. Confirming that we've asked Commissioner Sparks and Ponstein to work on the branding initiative that was reported to us at the executive committee, so thank you guys for your willingness to do that. And then finally, on reports, there has been a suggestion made, I think it tracks back to Commissioner Burrow, that we attempt to get some of the reports here in written form. I know that our commissioners are attending more boards, committees, and activities than we hear around the table at the reports. So I'm working on a format to allow for a brief written report to be emailed in from commissioners as they attend. We'll attach that to the agenda items, and not as a replacement to the oral report. We'll still have the opportunity to supplement that, but I want to make sure that all the activities that are going on are being communicated to the rest of the commission. So that's all the reports I have. Unless there's others, we'll move on to miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous? Yes, Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 miscellaneous items today. One, I'm going to read because I don't want to screw it up. I really want to just congratulate the Lowell Red Arrow Wrestling team. It's amazing what they're able to do. The entire team has qualified for the states the 9th year in a row. And not only that, but all 14 of their members qualified for individual, and they have a female wrestler who qualified. So they will be moving toward that goal, I think, tomorrow. And then I'll probably have another update next time when they win. So the second thing I wanted to mention is everybody got the youth fair information. I hope you look it over. These are an amazing group of parents who are pulling together to try to get this done, and I hope that the county supports it, and I hope you take the time to consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponstein, you have something to say about the Granville Wrestling Program?
No.
All right. Anyway, you had some other miscellaneous.
Yeah, I just want to point, Al, I sent you an email this morning. I think Jenny was on the link too. I got this email, and, through COVID, I think one of the hardest hit sectors were the entertainment venues. A lot of them have still not recovered. Some of them are still closed. And I know that the SBA has announced that a lot of the initial money never has actually gone out, but now they've revised it for those that haven't qualified for it. They may be qualified for it, and those that qualified, that received some, might be able to get more. And as I go through this link that was sent out, and I don't know how it's distributed, it came through the NACO Arts Committee, that's how I got it. These things are so confusing for a lot of small business owners. and a lot of them just throw their hands up, I don't have time for this. So maybe at the county, if we can maybe look at this document, and there's a lot of information in there, a lot of videos, a lot of links, and try to streamline it, that if there are still small businesses in Kent County that were affected, that were under what they call the Shattered Venue Operator Grants, that maybe we can reach out and get the information to them timely, that if there's money there to help them out on what they went through, that we find an easier way to do it. Because as a commissioner, the number one complaint I get from people who call me or people I talk to is that they just can't navigate the system. And this is just at the county level. And then you throw in the state and the federal level where a lot of this money's coming in from. It can be overwhelming and confusing, and most of the times that those in most need just say, I don't have time for it. So if maybe we can look at that and reach out to people with those venues and try to find out if there's money available for them. How can we help you get it? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I saw that communication as well. I think that's an excellent suggestion. All right, Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. First, if you're like me, you got an email that had Amy Ralston's name attached to it to complete a Colby Index. And I confirmed with her that that is not spam, that is real. So please click on the link, which I will do later today.
Crashed my computer when I tried it.
There you go. Well, you need something other than a Commodore 64. But we're just saying, Commissioner Morgan.
Still have an advocate.
There you go. So yes, click on the Colby Index. And then I had the opportunity and pleasure to participate in the Polar Plunge with the Special Olympics of Michigan on Saturday. It was awesome to see our sheriff department there in full force. By far the best represented organization that was part of it. Though I've already expressed my disappointment that the sheriff and undersheriff weren't part of that group that jumped in the water. So I'm hoping we'll pass a resolution or something to get the sheriff in the water next February as part of the Polar Plunge. But we might have to amend a standing rule to make that happen.
We don't do non-binding resolutions.
Well, we'll amend. Well, the sheriff can't hide behind the rules. We'll get her there. So thank you. Thank you again to those who did dive in.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Breivy.
I just wanted to remind everyone that following our meeting here at 9:30, we will be having a work session on our legislative priorities right here in this room.
Thank you for that reminder. Commissioner Womack.
Yes, just want to thank Chris Becker, Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker, and other commissioners that had a chance to make it to the MLK Cesar Chavez Street renaming celebration. It was a great celebration, a great sign of unity and collaboration to get those streets done, and even extending into East Grand Rapids. A lot of people didn't understand why we wanted to put Dr. Martin Luther King's name on the street. I always understood, but having a chance to work with my family in Atlanta, the Womack family, who's close to the King family, to get the King family here in Grand Rapids for that day. After sitting with the King family, I understand why we're putting it up there, but I really overstand now. The nephew of Dr. Martin Luther King told me he felt I might be an angry man. But he says, it's all right to be angry about the right things. And he took me to Ephesians. He said there was, and I read the Bible many times, but I must have missed over that. He said, be angry, and Ephesians said, be angry, but sin not. And he told me a story of how he was in church the day Dr. Martin Luther King's mother was shot in the face, and he's the nephew. And he said he jumped up, and he was the only one who chased the man, stopped him, and he beat the man. He said his father kept him up all night, Dr. Martin Luther King's brother, telling him he was wrong for beating the man because only love can conquer hate. And I said, I now understand why we are putting Dr. Martin Luther King's name up. And I wanted to put up to show a lot of other people, remind them about peace, but it took me to another level about peace. So I just want to thank East Grand Rapids, and thank Phil Skaggs, who got a chance to introduce us to Mayor Falave and the commissioners, and we presented our proposal to them. So now we have 2 cities in Kent County that will be honoring this remarkable civil rights hero. And it was a new day for me. It was a blessing for me to meet the King family. And I thank all of you for all the support that we got from the Kent County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any others? Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
Chair, real quick, just occurred to me that, following up on Commissioner Burrow's request, on the committees I sit on, we have pretty good minutes of what goes on in the meetings. So I was wondering if I don't know the right technical term, but maybe have a batch file, how's that? With these minutes in there, so if you want to go and see what's going on in a particular committee, you can just hit it and go in there and review it.
So when you put your reports together, can you put a link in to the minutes?
Well, I think, yeah, the minutes are real time, what's going on.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and they're not filtered at all. But, and the other thing is, follow up to Commissioner Bolkowski, I'm a follow-up guy today.
Clean up.
Where are we on the bonding for the Van Andel Arena through the what is it, DGRI or whatever it is now? It used to be the Downtown Development Authority.
It still is. The DGRI is the umbrella, Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. is the umbrella organization, and the Grand Rapids DDA remains a separate
Okay.
legal entity.
And they took out bonds for the Van Andel Arena,
And they
correct?
should be paid off this June.
Oh,
this
so
year.
earlier than we anticipated.
Yes, they, like us, they refinanced and saved some money when
That's
it
all-
was able to.
It's all good, but just wondering when that was going to be paid off.
Indication is June, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
What happens when it's paid off? Does the DDA strike it, get us more of our money back?
Unless they go into debt again.
Well,
I know.
we'll address that. All right, any other miscellaneous? If not, I will call on Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair, to Thursday, March 10, 2022, at 8:30 a.m. for an official meeting.
Supported? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.